All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the third of four of the Location Manager Guild International's Meet the Finalists Zoom panels. I am Sasha Alvarez. I'm a Los Angeles-based locations professional. I also wanted to take a quick minute to tell you, especially those of you who are not members yet, a little bit about the LMGI. The LMGI is a nonprofit 501c6 whose sole reason for existence is to promote what location professionals like you and I do for a living and to celebrate excellence on location. Think of us as a public relations arm for your profession, educating and elevating awareness to the public, government agencies, producers, directors, and even the rest of the crew on what it is that we all do, and particularly for our contributions to the creative process. We do that through programs like these Zoom calls, through events, advertising, educational panels, and proactive public relations efforts such as outreach to magazines and newspapers and other promotional opportunities. Additionally, the LMGI publishes the absolutely gorgeous Compass magazine, which is filled with photographs from your fellow location professionals. We are a almost 100% volunteer managed organization, with the main exception being our communications and operations director, Erica Howard, who's with us on this call. And with that in mind, we really do need your membership subscriptions to keep this all going. There are various levels that coincide with your level of experience, all the way from apprentice to emeritus. So if you don't know about us and you aren't a member yet, please check us out at locationmanagers.org. Let's get into the panels. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to JP Connor, who's going to be talking to our finalists from the Day of the Jackal.
Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Bella and Simon.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. So, Simon, sadly, you and I haven't had a chance to go through the questionnaire, but I spoke with Balint earlier. So I'm going to pop over to Balint and just ask for a story and then come back to you. You don't
Okay,
mind?
that's no problem.
Balint, could you share the story about the island this morning?
Uh,
Your
yeah,
hero island?
we had one of the key locations in Slovakia, in Croatia, and we traveled there because it's a big group of people for the tech recce, 4 directors, 4 DP, 4 first ADs, myself and Smiley, the local location manager, who unfortunately cannot be here, but he was also part of this whole journey. So we traveled there. I traveled down there for 3 days, packed light, in and out, easy. We have the locations. We just need to tech recce them. So we arrived there, and then unfortunately, it was a little bit choppy on that day, so we couldn't get to the island. And the local service company said, half joking, "Oh, it could happen. So, but the better is if you're not going there, rather than stay there and not be able to come back to mainland Croatia." And that was the point when Garrett, the owner of the Carnival studio, stepped to me and he asked me kindly, "Is he joking?" I said, "I don't think he's joking. So what do you mean? You scouted the location a couple of times, and now on the tech recce, we're finding out we actually maybe cannot shoot there." I was like, started sweating a little bit, my palms and everything. I was like, so yeah, that could be the case. And then when the 4 directors and DPs and everyone started to come closer and like, so what is going on? Well, then that's the situation. So Garrett canceled the scout. We went back to the hotel, and then they kindly asked me to stay to find a new location and locations for the further blocks, what we still haven't found. So I ended up staying there 8 weeks instead of 3 days, which is, looking back, it wasn't the luckiest, but to be honest, I, spending 8 weeks in summer in Croatia, I mean, that was pretty good actually. And the locals are super friendly. So we ended up finding all the locations. We never went back to that island. We never went back to any island idea. So we stayed on the mainland and then executed one of the key locations there, luckily. But it was painful, but looking back, it was very special to be there with them for 8 weeks. And I have a lot of new clothes because I packed for 3 days. So that's my most
Good.
painful and funny story.
So segueing into You want to talk about the island that you did pick and the challenges when you were filming on the island?
We actually haven't filmed on an island because we find out the weather conditions in Croatia. It's a very unique country, and very unique weather conditions can occur because of the high mountains and the sea. So basically, you can ended up two different kind of winds, which can cause very, very bad weather on the sea itself. So we decided to find our house on the shore in Opatija, which is one of the most beautiful cities in Croatia. And then we built around story around that. So we still went into the sea. So we still executed the swimming in the sea, but we made it work on mainland, not on an island.
Yeah, it felt very much like an island the way it was shot.
Oh yeah, yes, they done a very good job with it, but it was mainland.
Let me pop over to Simon for a second to say hello to him. All right, hello.
Either.
So, you had all the fun of London and the car chases and everything along the water. Since we didn't really chat, we didn't have a chance to go through any
Yeah.
notes. So, if you could just kind of tell us some stories of that, please.
It was that was the thing about the London shoot was we had an awful lot to do in a very short period of time. So we have
Uh-huh.
like 2 weeks with about 20 locations. So the whole thing had to fit together. And because they had so much to do over with Balin, we looked at it very, very early on in the shoot. And with it being split over the two blocks, everything was set. So if one piece came out, the whole thing, by the time you go into day and night and pull one thing around. And we had the scene for the riot place was chosen. Um, and these things take quite a long time with all the permissions and stuff like that. And then the city U-turned and said we couldn't do it because they'd had so many proper riot, protests that summer that they couldn't sanction a protest that wasn't really a protest, you know what I mean? So we then had to find somewhere else to do it. And of course, it's like everything, it's always the end of the universe when this happens, and it will never ever be. And we ended up finding somewhere that had never ever been used before, that no one knew who owned it. It worked 10 times better for the scene. And when I finally found out who the owner was and convinced them that it was theirs, they charged us £500 for the whole thing. We would have paid about 15,000 for our original place. So it was a kind of win-win situation for the whole thing, and it fitted perfectly into where we needed it to be.
I love stories like that. So there's always a great win-win. I mean, there was one yesterday in the panel of a similar kind of story of a fallout, and all of a sudden the solution was cheaper and better than the prep.
They very often are. Do you know what I mean? They
So
very often are.
tell me about her studio, her apartment that she lived in, because I kept reading about where that was with the home center. What was it? Where our officer, where our
Well,
intelligence.
Bianca's apartment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that was in just off. It was in a modern mews, which was rebuilt in Goulburn Road, but it overlooks one of the most iconic buildings in London,
Okay.
which is the Trellick Tower, which is designed by Erno Goldfinger. And
Yeah.
but it was scripted, and it's one of those ones I'd always wanted to use it because I'd pop down there and you clock these places that you think that's a great visual, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And
The
you've got
tower's great.
yeah, and it's not written for that at all. It's an Edwardian, which is like 1910 sort of mansion blocks, Um,
Very
and we
different.
put loads of them forward, and I'd wanted to have this thing put in, and so I put it in at the last slide to go through when we were presenting it. And it was early on, and we had Gareth was there, the exec as well, and he was on a Zoom while we were doing it, and the reaction was all the same. They went through all of them. It's like, oh yeah, great, this could work. And then there was something that was completely not what was written, not what was asked for, and not what anybody was expecting. And immediately they all went, that's the one we want. And it's that thing of you you've always got to throw things in sometimes that you have a good feeling about, because sometimes it's good to mix it up a bit. And it was the most immediate across the board reaction of all of the locations. It was like, yeah, that's what we want.
I love when that happens, because it's part of our job is to take our experience of the script and figure out what we would like to see as opposed to what other people think they want to see. And often our vision, somehow powers through because we look at a
Yeah.
lot of stuff.
Yeah, and you realize sometimes that if everyone starts so late on everything, there's never enough time to do anything. Everyone doesn't have a full vision of what they want. They might think they do, but they're all just playing the same game. But people just want to see things that work because they're trying to get, they're trying to get on with it.
Well, congratulations on that discovery. Let me pop back over to Ballant and ask him
Okay.
about MUPA.
Oh, well, yeah. We had the we had the situation when the
For
script
those of
was
you who don't
written.
know, it's a performance space in Budapest
Yeah,
and
it is
a major
it,
location.
it's a Palace of Arts. It's an amazing building, but the way the script was written, always a director needed, I mean, block 2 director needed to pick locations for block 3 and then block 4. So he shot only one day in Mupa, the Palace of Arts, but block 3 went back for 8 days. And I told everyone at the very beginning, I was sure we want to go down on this way, because at the summer we was able to go there under renovation, shoot it with Anthony. But then when we go to October and November, the venue become very, 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 very busy. But luckily, working with the locals and the amazing first AD, they managed to puzzle it together. But yeah, and it was the case with the island I mentioned earlier. Anthony picked it. He shot there half a day, and then we ended up shooting there with the other 2 blocks for like another 5 or 7 days or something like that. So this made it very, very tricky. But and then when we are in Mupa in November, we had the big riot scene outside when people freaking out, running out. So we had 600 extras, while we have an event inside with 1,000 person watching the show. So we needed to make sure with police escort, when those 1,000 people comes out, they're not freaking out on our 600 fakely freaked out extras. But luckily, Budapest police is very, very good with film people, and we properly cordoned us away from the other 1,000 people. They were watching us, what we're doing, but other than that, luckily, nothing else happened. So it was executed very well, luckily.
And you seem to be all over that the museum.
We shot everywhere, in every corner. We even built sections of it, that moving canopy on the top we needed to build because we were not able to walk on the real one.
So I couldn't really
But yeah,
stand there and almost fall out.
yes, that was Anthony's idea, because otherwise there is no way he can actually fall down of that. It's super safe to move it up and down, so he needed to add some drama, and that's why we built it on stage. But other than that, everything was in. We were in every corner in that building.
So does he really hide himself under that stairwell?
That was a build too.
Yeah, okay. It
Yeah.
looked really claustrophobic.
Yeah, I would never do that, but Eddie is Eddie. He was very passionate about the show.
Um, and then the other question I had about was the thrill of shooting in the train station in
Oh,
Budapest.
yeah. Yeah, we had on that day we had 4 locations: the train station, and then underground area under the train station, a metro, and the subway, all in one night. So we basically, the only way we can execute it, we start in the train station. But it's the end of the day, so it's super busy. So we decided to surround Eddie with 2 bodyguards and then 30 extras. And we basically, the camera, Brian, 30 extras, and the bodyguards are moved together, the crowd, at the main train station in Budapest. And we shot it twice or 3 times. And then Brian said, "Okay, let's move on. It's done." And he came to me, he's like, "Look, I don't know. I never ever done anything like this before. It's well done for everyone." I was like, "Well, thank you very much." So that was a very, very special couple of hours shoot there.
Yeah, it's what a fun challenge to kind of move it around.
Yeah, yeah, but they done it very, very well, and it looks real. But other than the 30 people, everyone else around us is real people traveling somewhere or coming from somewhere.
So I also wanted to mention that you've been previously nominated for an LMGI award for Jack Ryan. So I think you seem to be one of the guys that gets picked for these big adventure shows. Do you have any comments about that?
Uh, I, I'm working as a service company location manager here. I mean, I am independent. I'm working on commercials and other things, but I have a service company who I always work for. And if a difficult show coming, it somehow ended up in my lap. Like I just finished shooting NCIS Tony and Ziva. That was also quite an adventure. And I just 3 weeks ago started to work on the Jackal season 2. So they keep me busy.
Wow, it's awesome. So what about all those in Croatia? I guess because Smiley was a lot in Croatia, right?
Oh, Smiley was running around a lot. Yeah, I mean Croatia is an enormously big country and very strict speed limitations, so you can't really get fast from A to B. So it's a lot of traveling in Croatia.
And lots of little car chases and lots of little everything.
Yes, yeah, that little town worked out very well for us. That was very close to the actual Jekyll Villa. The coastal road was also on the way to the Jekyll Villa, so we actually puzzled it together very, very well. And yeah, and we ended up very nicely lie down the locations from basically north to south Croatia.
So you the show starts in Vienna. So you shot 3 days in Vienna with a
Yes,
good service company that helped you out there. But you did some
yes, yeah,
amazing things in 3 days. You really
yeah. I
busted
mean,
it.
it was very, very well prepped, and as I said, the Austrian team is not part of the creative process. They are hiring location persons to execute what the director wants, and they actually done everything very well. It wasn't particularly easy, but yeah, it went very well. The whole stunt scene, jumping out from that high-rise building, everything went very well. So unfortunately, they operating slightly differently than we are here in Hungary. So they just executing what the director wants rather than part of the creative process.
Oh, there you go. Simon, I just have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
Up there you are. So what's up for you next?
Me, what have I done? I worked on a thing called The Girlfriend for Amazon, which hasn't come out yet. Um, I did a children's TV thing, which was based near my house, which was fantastic, which happened in the early part of this year. And then I've just been on a second series of a Netflix show, but they've done that thing where you're so embargoed they don't want anybody to talk about it, even though everybody's, seems to be the new thing.
Wow. So just to reiterate, do you have any other little special stories from your London shoot that might outside of the change of the riot scene?
Outside the roasted. Well, the night I liked the best, I mean, it was more just for a warm feeling, was um, the canal sequence with Anthony, because that's a really great part of London.
Yeah, I love the canals.
And the council and everyone there was just so on board with it. And we took over the entire section for 2 nights. And it worked beautifully. And just the whole thing, and it was one of those places where the weather was great, everything was great, it was big, and it was just a fun atmosphere to be. And sometimes you have times when you're on set and it's just a joy to be around. Do you know what I mean? So there was
Yeah.
everything went smoothly. The
Yeah, I
stunts
mean, it was
all the way through.
I lived in London for 6 years, and the canals are great, and they seldom are featured in stories, and I just think they're just fun to walk around. So I think it was a great.
No,
So I think these are my last questions. So I want to thank you so much for coming along and playing with us, and Bella, I want to say the same thing. Thank you so much for the interview,
Yeah,
and look forward
thank
to
you.
meeting you. Are you going to be here, Simon?
me. When
Are
is
you,
when is
are
it?
you going to come to the event?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. I'm afraid it's a bit it's a little distance for me. I'm afraid, but I'm looking forward to it. But it was a
Okay.
great show to work on, and I think we all knew when we were working on it that it was going to be a show of this caliber.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't wait for the second season. It's and just Eddie Reddymade is just remarkable in this role. And you would have never, guessed it.
Yeah,
He's so good in it.
yeah. No, he
Well, thank
is.
you,
He is.
gentlemen. Much
Thank
appreciated.
you.
Okay,
Back to you,
nice
Sasha.
one, Valen. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you, best.
Bye,
See
Valen.
you later, Valen. All the best.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. So we're going to be talking about Slow Horses season 4, which is predominantly shot in like London and England, but season 4 does take us to France for a fair amount of the episodes. And I have with us our supervising location manager for the French work, Stephanie Pede. Where are you? Hello.
I'm here. Hello.
There you are. Hi. Thanks for
I
joining us.
was the Scout location manager, the only Scout location
Okay.
manager for
Ah.
this.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. Stephanie
Thank
is
you.
the first-time nominee. She's worked on some other projects like The Killer and A Trois. I'm so curious about some of the work that you did finding these French towns. And Stephanie and I were talking a little bit about the work that she did on this before we started this panel. And it really is a testament to the persistence that we sometimes have as scouts, where we know that something is perfect, perhaps, for the director, but the owners of the property might be a little bit hesitant to like get on board. So can you tell us a little bit about what it was that you were looking for and how you went about finding it? And I want to hear these stories.
Yes, I can tell you about the Scout. And I'm happy to be with you because I think I have invested myself like never before on this project. All the locations are new, among villages and houses that have never been in a film. I have worked hard to artistically propose location to the director. So yes, there was a strong expectation of finding this deserted, abandoned village for the director, and with this old cafe in the center of the village, and the abandoned house opposite to the cafe, from which the character will escape the houses. The house. Of course, there was always an aesthetic expectation on the part of the director, who spoke very lightly, the director. The production designer was very responsive when I.
You have very
First,
specific elements that you were looking for them, because it's, you know, like it's a house, you've got a cafe across the street, and there are all these elements with like stunts and fight scenes and chases. And where, like, how many different places did you find before you found the one that you were going to film at, and how did you go about looking for these?
first I thought about it and used Google Map and my knowledge of the region architecture to find the best area in the north of France. On where I would have the best chance of finding this village. The imperative was, if possible, to have the house opposite the cafe that they could see from the kitchen. It wasn't to film in one take, but to stay close as possible to the script. So I spent several days searching for this abandoned house in the village. When I finally identified the perfect one, it took me a long time to track down the owner because the house was totally abandoned from 25 years. So eventually I got his phone number. We set up a meeting to visit the house, but of course it happened to be the official scouting director there with the whole team, around 30 people, including the director. We are
So it's
waiting for him to open.
we sort of
Yes,
call that a technical scout. So you didn't actually even get to see this property until the day of the tech scout, and you can't find the owner on that day, or that's what's
yes,
going on? Oh gosh. I hate
yes.
how that happens.
It was the artistic scout,
Okay.
not the technical scout. It was
Got it.
the artistic with around 30 people
Okay.
from the crew. And yes, exactly. It was the same day, and I met the owner.
So how did you get in?
Like Mrs. Marple, or talking with the city hall, talking with all the people neighborhood in the village, and it took me 1 week. I was coming back during. Sorry for my English, I'm not fluent. It's sorry. So I coming back during 1 week every day in order to find this honor. So because this this house is grandmother house of this honor. And
There was some trouble actually opening the door.
yes,
The
yes,
scouts. What happened there?
yes. He started. We are all waiting for him to open the door, but he couldn't. He started to panic, and even said he wanted to give up. So I panicked too, because all the crew were here. I kept insisting. I knew deep down this was our location. And then suddenly he walked off and came back with a hatchet. He would,
Shit.
yes, he would take from the butcher next door.
Yeah.
Everyone freaked out. It felt like we were in a horror film. He was ready to smash the door open. That's the real. That's true. Everything is true. And luckily, his carpenter friend happened to walk by. Talk about fate. And the door was finally open. And when I stepped inside, I found a house frozen in time. It hadn't changed in 25 years. It was his grandmother's house.
So everything was just sort of left as it was, like a time capsule from 25 years ago on the inside?
Yes, a half full glass of wine, potato peels, old medication.
Wow.
Nothing had moved, nothing. And at this moment, the director refused to go inside. I didn't know why. I was very furious. And I made him walk through the place.
As you should. If you had to open that place up with a hatchet on the day of an artistic scout, got to make that director walk through.
I think so. Yes, I think.
Stephanie,
He
we
did.
have an interesting video and photo from your time there that I'm going to pull up and screen
Yes,
everybody.
I would like to say to you that the photo come from Charlotte Schaefer,
Okay.
and she's here during the Zoom meeting.
Oh, that's
Charlotte,
wonderful.
yes. I would like to introduce Charlotte, my friend. I often work with her. And she was assistant location manager, and she shared the photo.
Oh, fantastic.
So hello, Charlotte.
Hi, Charlotte.
Nice to meet you.
I am going to pull up these photos. Here we go. All right. So can you tell me a little bit about what we're looking at here?
So that's because some of the city parts were on like traffic control, and some of them were ITC only, because we stayed for a few days in the village and people still had to go through, and that was a main road. So for the smaller scenes, we had to do ITC only. That's why he was holding that sign.
Got it. And this next one I'm pulling up, can you give us a little introduction as to what is going on with this dog?
So that's if you're familiar with the show, that's the dog chase that we filmed with the motorbike, and that was the rehearsal to see if the dog was comfortable with the stunts.
He seemed pretty comfortable, so I'm gonna let this run while we continue to. Can you tell us sort of what it is? Because working with animals in the street is always a thing.
Action.
So that street was locked up completely. And as you can see, we had removed all the cars. And then, so the dog handler was, had given something to the double here so that the dog would follow him. And then he would run straight back to his handler to give him the toy back. So that's what we rehearsed on the day. And we put a GoPro on the back of the dog so that we can see what it looked like.
Look at this guy go.
It's incredible, yes.
Great job. Yeah, go back to next thing. Hang on. All right, next photo.
So that's, well, that's just before, like the road was locked up, and then as you can see, we had redressed completely the cafe. That's just a photo of what it looked like when it was fully locked up, basically.
Okay.
Those are all the tech scouts that we did.
Ah.
That's the arrival of the main character in that's where we shot the first sequence. And that's the castle, the amazing castle that Stephanie found.
Oh, beautiful.
And as you can see in the village was not technically abandoned, but it was quite empty. And that was a photo I took in the early morning, which looked quite creepy, actually.
Yeah, you got the spider web in there and everything too. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Got our cafe again.
So that's the setup for when he goes through the window. And you had to run on the roof of the butcher shop, the back of the butcher shop. So we had to, our department had to solidify the roof because it was quite old. So we had to find, like, because they didn't really talk about that for a few weeks while we were prepping. And at the last minute, nobody was talking about that. And we had to actually solidify the roof. So I had to find like a local roofer to get that roof done so that we can securely have the actor walk on it. And that's the front of the house with, a little camp there and the lifts that we had. And that's our base camp. Because the village was so small, we had to ask City Hall to give us like a field so that we can park everything, and then we would just do drops into the locations. And then same, see, we had to protect the flooring because it was full of grass in the back. So we had to protect so we could put the crane on.
All right.
That's
That's
it.
all our photos. Yeah, those are wonderful. Stephanie, Charlotte, I want to thank you both so much for joining us on this call. Really good to have you and to hear more about all of this work that you did in France. Like, I love all the stories about this village. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Gina Vreeland, who's going to be talking to Mobland. But thank you both so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you very much.
So I want to thank Steve Mortimer and Emily Coldwell for joining us. They worked on Mobland. And Steve, I really enjoyed watching this series. I could tell by watching it, it was a real challenge. And when I read your response to my questions, it actually reminded me of working on the first season of Sons of Anarchy. There was a lot of whiplash moments and scripts delayed and just having to think on your toes constantly. So anyway, dare I ask, what was it like working with Guy Ritchie and the whole production?
Yeah, there were some great stories then that I just heard, by the way. Really enjoyed that. Yeah, there was a lot going on. There's no doubt about it. There was a lot going on. It started off, it was Ray Donovan. It was a spin-off of a LA show called Ray Donovan.
Oh.
And then it evolved and became the Donovans, and then it eventually turned into Mobland. So there was lots of changes that were going on right from the start. And it was just the sheer quantity of everything really that was going on. I mean, I'm used to doing period films or films that depict other countries, you know, like we did sort of Napoleon or Wonder Woman and things like that, where we depict sort of US stuff. So it was really good to do a UK location that was contemporary show that we were depicting the UK, and I thought it would be a lot easier, but it turned out to be the most difficult thing we've ever done in the end. I think Emily would probably concur that, would you?
Yeah. Different pacing.
Yeah, slightly different pace, and obviously we got into the a stage where we had sort of the double banking with both units, but then during that time we also had to do the production meetings or to do tech records. So I'd wake up in the morning and there was one of 6 things I could do. Do I go to one unit, the other unit? Do I do a tech recce, a production meeting, a designer recce? I mean, it was just continual all the way, you know. But just like every other show, at the end of it, you look back at it and all you do is remember all the good things, don't you? You know, you forget all the things that drove you crazy and you know, drove you to have a drink or two more than you probably should at the time. But it was, it was pretty fast paced. You know, just rewrite after rewrite. And that opening scene, not sure if you remember that opening scene where Pierce is in the restaurant and then it goes downstairs to Tom Hardy in sort of the basement of the restaurant where there's a big sort of shootout. I mean, they came out with that sort of halfway through. So, but we literally had 2 weeks to get that scouted and shot and permitted because they had to get it into post and sort of on air pretty soon. So that was a challenge. And I remember I got back on the Friday night and just sort of opened a drink as you do, and the producer called and said that they need to reshoot the restaurant scene again. And I couldn't work out what restaurant scene he was talking about at the time. I was thinking, what the one that we did on Monday? You know, for whatever reason, there was a few sort of technical issues or something. So and so we had to redo all that again with just a moment's notice. So it's those things that you know, that sort of make it a real challenge. But we got through it. You know, we did it in the end. And as I said, we wrapped on the Wednesday. We had the premiere on the Thursday, wrap party on the Friday, and then it was aired on the Sunday. So, I mean, that's something that I've never done before.
Yeah, that's neither of us. How big was your team? I mean, at the height of all of it.
Yeah, it was pretty big. We had 5 teams that just leapfrogged each other, location teams. Emily was one of the location managers. We had another 4, Lindsay, Felix, Jack, and Jenny, and we just continually leapfrogged each other. So I would just be sort of working ahead, and I'd just sort of throw locations at them and said, right, run with that they had to sort out within like a week or 2 sometimes. So it was just a continual sort of leapfrogging each other. And we had sort of 2 unit teams as well. We had sort of like an A and a B that just sort of were with both units. It was sort of one of the biggest teams I've had actually, which I didn't expect it to be at the start. You know, you thought that with a TV show, it was a 7-month shoot when I started, and then it suddenly just ended up folding in half almost, you know, and becoming this sort of double banking show where you know every day we were on 2 different locations and trying to catch up. Yeah, it was pretty nuts.
Well, like one of those situations where it's like, be careful what you wish for, because here you're like, oh, I'm going to be working, you know, close to home. And then it becomes like the biggest thing you've ever done.
Yeah, exactly. I sort of, over the years, I've done a lot of stuff overseas and don't like to particularly work overseas now. I like to try and keep it at home. And obviously, mainly sort of movies as well, film. So it was really good to sort of get my teeth into a TV show. But yeah, I really wasn't expecting this, I must admit. And we're doing it all again. I'm just setting up season 2 now. So, you know,
I look forward
sucker for punishment.
look forward to watching it. Emily, Emily, was there you being a manager, was there a particular location that you found that was quite the challenge? Anything that stood out for you?
There was, to be honest, I think the main challenge we had with a lot of the locations was the turnaround. And we certainly found that as the scripts were so last minute, and sometimes we were shooting as they were coming in on the day, a lot of the locations we found were often led by what we could feasibly give them in like a week's time or a couple of days' time sometimes. We did have a sort of location in East London that was probably for me my biggest challenge, because it was like across five sort of splits inside a nightclub, and all the sort of interiors were, you know, quite straightforward. It was the main, I think it's episode 1 and 2, isn't it, Steve, for Fold Nightclub? And actually working with the nightclub was an absolute dream. They were so clued up on how to accommodate filming. But the environment that their club was in wasn't the most comfortable to be operating in, with quite a big budget production. And we did find ourselves in some quite sort of sticky situations with the outside world, in terms of thefts, unfortunately. And we were trying to kind of like navigate how to, you know, keep everything sort of secure. This won't be news because it was in the papers almost like a couple of days later. And I found that particularly difficult because you're sort of wearing the responsibility of the location and sort of the safety of all the crew. But also we're part of the reason we went for this street particularly is because it's aesthetic. So in the scene, one of the lead characters runs out of this club and runs down kind of a bit of a dodgy alleyway down the underpass. And we were looking for a dodgy corner of London, and we found it down the road from from the nightclub. And unfortunately, when you're scouting that sort of area, it kind of comes hand in hand that that's what the area is. And we certainly found that while we were shooting, that there were moments of like uncomfortable moments, sadly, where we you know, and we still had 5 more days worth of shooting to do when it happened on the first night. And yeah, that's Canning Town in East London for you.
It was real. It was
It
a
was
real
real,
place.
yeah. Yeah.
So did you both actually watch the whole series?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay. Was there at any point was there a location that you worked really hard on and they were like, we have to have it, and then you watch the series and then it gets cut?
I mean, I had one.
Yeah, Emily had one. It's funny. That's happened to me quite a few times in the past on films, but I think with this we just shot. I think pretty much it all ended up in there. But Emily's got a good story of a location that we did. Well, she worked very, very hard on, but it never ended up.
One of I think it was possibly episode 7, where our character Serafina goes to Antwerp, and then she needs to be rescued. There was a version of that script where she was going to be held up in a cargo ship. And so I went scouting for a cargo ship's hull, like a real thing. And we managed to find this amazing cargo ship in the middle of sort of just in Kent along the Thames. And we'd scouted it with the designer, and we were actually at that point where we had to FaceTime director because director was shooting at this point. So it was like trying to get locations signed off sometimes on FaceTime, and this was one of them. And we then needed to bring this cargo ship somewhere that was shootable. So we arranged to have it brought into Royal Victoria Dock in East London, because it's a controllable body of water. If we kind of opted to do it just off the Thames, you wouldn't have had much it would have made it really complicated shooting with obviously tide and things like that. So we decided to bring it into Royal Docks, which involves lifting up about 3 bridges, and a big old process trying to get this cargo ship in. And it kind of appeared on the tech recce's, and everyone was really excited because this massive cargo ship arrived. And we recce'd it. We planned to shoot it the the following week, which was like, I think we had about a week or 2 weeks to turn this around, Steve. I think it was about a week. So you're feeling pretty proud that you find a ship and bring it in and manage to dock it. Anyway, there was a slight oversight as to whether we could get like cast in there from kind of a production side of things. So then they all had our production had a meeting about, let's change the brief for the following week and find something else to tie the characters up into. And so I had to watch this cargo ship sail away, stopping traffic in London, lifting up all these bridges to get it through because it was so big. And I was quite gutted, to be honest with you, because I thought that was quite exciting to turn it around. And in the end, we ended up doing it in a old wind tunnel out in Farnborough. That's where they were in hostage situation instead. That one kind of never got shot itself, but I was quite gutted to do the work, and then it never came to fruition, unfortunately.
Well, as a fan of the show, you know, your location would have been better. Just
I think so.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Oh, no,
it was a great boat.
Yeah, it was. It's called Polar Rose. Wonder where she is now.
Well, so you know, it was mentioned by Steve, the continuous script changes. Was there like a last minute request that was made that you were like, I don't know if I could really do this, but yet, you know, you did it and you're real proud of, and you want to tell everybody about it?
Gosh, I mean, there really was so many. It was just continual. But I think the scene with Kat and the airplane, you know, that private jet. I mean, that was just shot with a few weeks' notice. And normally you get at least 3 months or 4 months to sort those things out that I've been used to on films. But again, it was just a couple of weeks, and there just so happened to be a jet that worked, and it was in the country, and just so happened that the space was available at Farnborough Airport, and we could make it work. And it was a real last minute thing to get those contracts over, because as you probably know, when you film on a plane, it's not like a standard location agreement. I mean, it needs to go through everyone at Paramount and all the legal team and everything like that about, you know, is it flying, and is it moving, is the plane flying, how close are we driving to it? And you just get into a routine. You don't even think about it, and don't really want to do it again at such short notice. But you just end up, when you're in that mindset and routine, you just end up pulling it off as what you do. But when you look back at it and think, gosh, you know, you got that plane and that airport sorted out with just a couple of weeks, when normally I'd be doing it in sort of 3 or 4 months. Yeah, it you know, it's a good achievement. But you don't want to set that as a standard. You don't want them to try and do it again in 2 weeks, ideally. But that's the problem. You keep providing, you keep coming up with all the answers, and obviously, and they, you know, they keep asking, you know, and you keep delivering.
I think also, fortunately, we are, like, as a team, we've quite well practiced with London at this point. So when we were faced with last minute issues, we kind of already knew what boroughs we could go to get that road closure in such a short time, what councils would help us turn this around, what locations are film friendly. And I think it was a real draw on all of our, like, I guess, experience a little bit of problem solving this. Like even we found that I think the most last minute request we had was driving sequences for the following day. And so we would be out in the car, and it got to the point where we were, like, again, choosing the roads based on, we knew the people in the council that would help us get this over the line for 24 hours later. Like, we would avoid TfL red routes because we knew they would never let us get it over the line under their 2 weeks lead in. And the Met Police were on board because they knew, you know, we had done plenty of filming with them many times before. So they, you know, if we came to them with a route and told them that this is how we're doing it, there was a real trust there. And fortunately always helped us grant permission for the following day. But that was getting to a bit tiresome, was how many driving sequences they had to fill for the next day.
No, there's so many. I mean, I mean, I'm thinking there was over 20 in total, wasn't there? I mean, because it was a hangover from sort of Ray Donovan, and he's always driving, isn't he? In Ray Donovan, he's all driving, which is a very LA thing, but in London is not quite the same. You know, people jump on tubes and walk and take bikes and things like that. So it's not often to get a show that you're trying to do, you know, over 20 drive-in scenes,
Central London.
you know, for one series. Yeah, in central London. But yeah, we did it. You know, I mean, they were all for real, apart from one. We did one volume, didn't we? That was just the nightclub one in the end of that night one.
Yeah.
I think pretty much all of them were all for real in the end. And it
So,
looks good. You know?
yeah, well, I really enjoyed the show. So your hard work all paid off, and I look forward to season 2. But before we go, is there anybody that you want to thank? It could be a government official, anybody that helped you, that just saved you guys on the show.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Westminster Council were amazing. You know, I mean, it's the sort of the busiest borough in London, and we, you know, we broke a few rules with them. There's no doubt about it, and they were just amazing. They, you know, they enabled us to do it. Kensington Chelsea Council as well. Steve Dixon was incredible help. The former Met Police officer that is now working freelance, that just helped us with so many of the driving scenes and guns. I mean, there was guns in pretty much every scene. So to get the permissions for that over the line, and Danny at the Met Police as well. TFL, you know, they were incredible as well. Again, many last minute requests. And Emily, you should probably thank the people with the boat as well, shouldn't you?
Yeah, they were great. And Livet's helped me source that boat. So that was, yeah, very, very, very helpful. But I think it's because we have these relationships with all these people already that they kind of, you know, want to help, which is really nice.
Yeah. You've got to know when to say no. I'm sorry, I'm not going to ask for that, because I just know the answer is no. So let's not waste any more time. Oh, and drones as well. There were so many drone shots in there, wasn't there? Gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there was sort of 25, 30 drone shots that we all had to do. Again, a moment's notice, a couple of days' notice in between everything else, you know, while we're shooting with 2 units as well. So, yeah, no, it kept us all busy, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And so anyway, it's time to pass it on to Parker. He's going to interview the team from the studio.
Hey, Stacey and Marty, thanks for joining us today to talk about the studio, season 1. This is your second nomination, correct?
Unmute, Stacey.
Yes, I got it. Yes, this is the second one.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So y'all primarily shot in Los Angeles, featured some really iconic Los Angeles locations. But what I first want to talk to you about is my favorite episode, the Oneer. What was it like finding that house? I'm sure there were a lot of check marks you guys needed to
Yeah.
find.
Oh yeah, the Oneer. I got a panic attack just reading the script. Yeah, no, so let's just say Seth Rogen is an architect buff, and he made it clear that all of the houses that studio executives actually have are a lot of mid-century moderns. You know, they're collectors of houses. And reading that Oneer, I knew it had to be larger. A lot of mid-centuries are not that large. So Silvertop was, of course, the first one to come to mind.
Is that was the first and only house you scouted, or did you look?
Yeah, it was. I mean, of course, it's amazing. So as soon as he saw it, we didn't really have to show any other ones. Plus, we shot all the other ones for other characters.
Right. How long were you guys there for?
We were there for a week.
Didn't get it done in one take, right?
No.
That's awesome. Did they write for like specific locations?
Yeah, they did. So this is pretty autobiographical for them, right? So these experiences are like actual situations that they've been put in, that they've written. So, you know, things like the Golden Globes at the Beverly Hilton, you know, that's where they have them. So that's where it had to be. He was open to looking at, you know, the different mid-century moderns. but he did name the Garcia house in one script in particular, but it had just recently exchanged ownership, so that actually didn't work out. But he was very specific in naming which locations he wanted.
Did you run into any situations where it's like, I have to have this, and then for whatever reason?
Well, the Beverly Hilton, because so where it fell within our schedule of shooting, they had just started their demo to build the one for Beverly Hills. And so they tore down their parking structure and their whole pool area, which butts right against the bank, the ballroom where they actually have the Golden Globes. So we went back and forth with them. Like, they're very sweet. Daniel there is great, but they didn't want us to shoot there because they didn't want to be responsible for the noise and taking our money and then ruining our shots. But Seth was very insistent that we go there because that's where they have the Golden Globes. And so it worked out because we shot every episode as a oneer. So we would rehearse 80% of the day and then actually shoot. So we would rehearse and choreograph it all up until about 4 p.m. and then construction stopped and then we would shoot. So it ended up working out, but it was very intense and very scary.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
You were at the Chateau Marmont as well.
That's
How
another one.
outside, you were in the kitchen. Like, how did
We were in
that?
the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was two factors to that. The tricky one was, one, it was very expensive to shoot there. One, and two is, the whole Sunset Boulevard on a Friday night. That was also a logistic nightmare. The kitchen, we just had to shoot after 2 a.m. That
Okay.
was the only stipulation there.
Late night.
Yeah.
That. Vegas.
Yes.
You had Bryan Cranston's character on a drug-filled bender going to the Venetian.
Yeah.
You gotta have some good stories from that, I'm sure.
It was good. That one was probably, it was the most stressful because we had started courting them in January when we first started. And notoriously, I've been told that they are, they accept the least amount of projects. And so, of course, with the content of the script, I was very nervous, very nervous. We only had to tweak the script a couple times. As long as the drugs weren't bought at the Venetian, we brought them from LA, and then I would always try to lead the witness with Elaine. I'd be like, listen, it's a comedy and so on and so forth. But she was like, Stacey, we have a sense of humor. I was like, okay. So we courted them, scouted there several times. We were flying out there every 2 weeks. And it wasn't until 2 weeks before we were supposed to be shooting there did we get our final approval. And he didn't want any other casino. And so I was like, should we start looking at cheats? Like, what are we going to do? And he didn't want it. And so thank God we got it, because I don't know how we would have pivoted 2 weeks out for that much of work. We were there 2 weeks. So that would have been a nightmare. Yeah.
They wouldn't have been able to fall into the boat, I think, anywhere else.
Well, no. And also we wouldn't have been able to cheat it as them, because if they didn't want us to use their name, we couldn't have cheated it either. I don't know how we would, but yeah.
Right. That's incredible. Did you have a location that you were very proud of securing and during the show that you just didn't think it was going to get done?
Well, Chateau, but Vegas mostly. Vegas was my white whale for that season. It really was.
Vegas is tough. They don't shut down for much.
No, and again, it was a hotel that is not overshot. There's a lot of film friendly hotels there, and so I'm glad that we got to shoot there.
Oh yeah. Frank Lloyd, we were talking about the architecture a little bit. I think Frank Lloyd Wright was featured quite a bit.
Yes.
You want to just talk about the scouting process for finding those homes and sticking to sets demands?
Yes. Well, thank God for Catherine Myler. Let's just say that she's got all the good ones. And yeah, It's I think we shot almost all of them. I don't know how we would find any additional ones to shoot for season 2. So hopefully they're recurring.
You guys had a ton of cameos.
Yes.
So that's a lot of high profile scheduling to deal with and trying to make it all happen. How did their schedules impact the locations, and when did, since Seth was so specific about these locations,
Yeah.
when did that take precedent over a famous actor?
Well, so there was a lot of iterations of which celebrities were going to be in which roles, and let's just say not all of them were how were they originally scripted because of their availability, and then we ended up with one. The only one that really drove our schedule was Martin Scorsese, which, you know, who cares? We jumped through hoops. We were like, we'll do whatever. And he was available one day. And so we scrambled, and the Roosevelt, Miriam over there really, you know, hustled for us, and we managed to get it. Wasn't able to get some posting because it was last minute, but we made that work. And we got in there and shot him out. And so, and that was great. I kind of fangirled out a little bit, but yeah.
That's awesome.
He's the only one that really dictated our schedule. Everybody else ended up working out. Hopefully the cameos in season 2 will be a lot easier to cast. They'll really get, you know, some good ones. I'm sure they're being courted right now about being in the show.
Continental, that's Warner Brothers. What was it like working with them and turning it into a different studio that wasn't Warner Brothers?
We kept them on their toes. I have to say that was funny because we shot stuff that they just weren't used to people requesting. You know, we're like, we want to be in between these 2 stages and shooting this way. They're like, okay, well, let's just, how do we even price that out? Like, let's figure it out. And so, yeah, and we would work with a couple. There was a few other shows working at the same time with us. I mean, it's sad, but it wasn't that busy on the lot. So we kind of got away with a lot of stuff that we may not have been able to do. But yeah, working with, you know, walking in between stages where there's other shows, you know, we would just put like magnets on their trucks to say Continental Studios and stuff like that. But we all eventually worked it out, and they're excited for us to come back.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've got some photos here that you guys sent us.
My Marty Cummings.
Marty
Cummings did that. Yes, he did.
Buddy.
So this is a Lloyd Wright house. It's called, so Lloyd Wright, son of Frank Lloyd Wright, one of 3 Lloyd Wright houses that we scouted. This one is called the Handley Adley House, and it is in Runyon Canyon. It is, it had once been Errol Flynn's house back in the, I think, early 50s. But it is, it's the last house, if you're ever in Runyon Canyon, that's on the west side of the fire road. And we didn't shoot there, of course. This is one that, you know, we saw 3 Lloyd Wright houses. We saw, I think, 5 or 6 Lautner houses. We saw the A-frame under the Hollywood sign was another one. That's now on the market, by the way.
All right. In the market for a new nice home. This one, I think you can talk about a little bit.
That's Silvertop, sure. That's the
It's our winner.
That's our oneer. That's the what is it? The Reiner Buchel? Is that how you pronounce it? House. It's affectionately known as Silvertop on the west side of Silver Lake.
It was beautiful.
Just a terrific house.
It's amazing.
The view was incredible. How are the neighbors up there?
They're okay. I mean, the saving grace for this house is the main driveway. The grade is pretty steep, but they have a second entrance from the street below. That's a long winding driveway up. So we were able to have 2 access points to load in. That helps a lot. That helped a lot with that house.
And the tennis court was
Yeah.
a lifesaver.
First,
For-
yeah, staging equipment.
That's great. Same house?
Same
Yes.
house.
View. Excellent. What do we got here?
So that is the Beverly Hilton. That's one of our scouts. We have our first AD, our line producer, Danielle Todd with the Hilton, Stacy in the red jacket, and Julie Berghoff, our talented production designer on the right.
Some. The kitchen, Chateau Marmont.
This is at the Marmont. This is where we shot, and that was, you know, again, yes, while it cost a lot of money, as Stacey can attest, the negotiation with them, you know, going into the kitchen was a sensitive one, and it took, I think, we had our very first scout there on January 20th or January 18th, and we shot there April 25th. So we were in contact with them 3-4 times a week.
Do have to say though, the kitchen staff went bonkers when because Seth directed. So he was on these scouts, and talk about a huge fan base. That kitchen loved him.
Yeah, he's a recognizable guy.
He's a lovable guy.
Lovable guy. And last one, what do we got?
This is the John Soden house. It's a Lloyd Wright house on Franklin Avenue in Los Feliz. If you ever drive by it, sometimes people call it the Jaws house. It's also known as the Black Dahlia house in Los Feliz. And
that was one that didn't make the cut, but
it didn't make the cut. But I chose this photo because it really exemplified that Mayan revival that you see in the you know, in the Continental offices. So you know, that sort of boxy poured cement or block look is one that was important from the jump. From, you know, before cameras started rolling, we were talking about the importance of architecture, you know, in this love letter that Seth and Evan wrote to Los Angeles.
Yes, it is a love letter to Los Angeles, and I really enjoyed it. And now you got something in the archives for season 2 right there. Great.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks so much for chatting with me. Congrats on season 2, and we'll see you in 2 weeks at the awards.
You sure will.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
I'm gonna kick it over to Sasha to talk about Landman.
All right, folks, we're going to be talking about Landman Season 1, which is filmed mostly in Fort Worth, Texas, following a landman into the high-stakes world of West Texas oil. Dustin Daniels, supervising location manager, 2-time nominee for Yellowstone. Where are you joining us from today? You look like you're in an office.
We start a new show in Bozeman, another Taylor Sheridan show here in Montana. So I'm back in Montana. And our production office is getting set up. These are all tables and chairs that we're probably going to help set up tomorrow. But yeah, I'm excited to be back in Montana and out of the Texas heat. It is real hot right now. So glad Landman wrapped up.
Wonderful. We will speak more specifically about Landman, but since you've been so involved in the Taylor Sheridan world, sort of like since the beginning, I'm just curious about the various projects that you've worked on with him in that universe, and sort of what you can tell us about being that deeply involved with the creative from the beginning, not just on like one very recognizable show, but now many.
Yeah, I've been blessed to work with Taylor for almost 7, 8 years now. Sometimes we call it the golden handcuffs because we're always busy, but it's been really fun. Yellowstone was just a great ride, and then that just started off a series of tons of other projects that like I think Mobland works with 101. 101 has just been a great proponent of Taylor's and Paramount. So we've got to do all of the years, the 1883s, the 1923s, probably more projects of that, and then Landman, and this new one, the Madison, that we're about to start. But Taylor's been amazing. He writes everything, and of Yellowstone and Landman and the ones that are like near and dear to him in 1883, he show runs them also. So every single creative decision goes straight to Taylor, and it is his vision all the way. You know, we work with some amazing directors that are his friends, and he trusts, but it is all Taylor. And I was actually just thinking about it. In 7 years, I haven't even worked on a script that Taylor hasn't written. And when I read another script the other day, I was like, wow, this is this is weird. But it's been a fun ride.
So how, because when we were talking to some folks from 1923 yesterday, they mentioned that script loyalty, like in the scouting process, it ends up being like kind of a big deal. Like as it is written, it must be. So how
Wow.
how did this work out for you on Landman?
It is the Bible. And if there's any questions, you revert to the script. And that's the answer. Uh, we don't change locations. If it's scripted as something, that's what we're doing. That's where we're going. So it's nice because you know, you do have that you have that structure. You can always just say, well, this is scripted as the Petroleum Club in Midland. We're going to shoot the Petroleum Club in Midland. We're going to do that real place. Um, and that also gives us just a lot of a lot of you know, a lot of ability to just go in and, you know, we say Taylor wants this. This is what we're going to shoot, and so that's nice too.
And in the first couple of episodes are quite eventful location wise. In particular, we're talking about, there's a collision of a truck into a plane. We've got explosions, we've got fire. The little bit of research I did into this, like you're in local newspapers as far as the meetings that you had to take with like government officials. So can you tell us about what went into making this scene happen?
Yeah, that was a really fun scene of landing an aircraft on a highway. And we toyed with the idea of maybe just using an airstrip and then making it look like a highway. But Taylor was like, nope, I want a real highway.
No
So
thing.
we kind of just started talking to different counties and judges and sheriff's offices and the Department of Transportation in Texas, and asking, is there anyone that's going to be open to doing this? Because of the nature of the scene, we had to have multiple rehearsals. So we had to close it for about 2 weeks. And because of landing an aircraft on the road, it had to be a large road that had like the size that an aircraft could land. The fences had to be a certain distance. There had to be no bumps on the road, no telephone poles, no wires, no signs. We, you know, had to adjust a lot of things. So once we actually found it, it took myself and my colleagues some campaigning to go to the different stakeholders and the neighbors and the school district and rerouting buses and the post lines and everything else, trying to get that road closed for you know, 2 weeks. And I think everyone here that's a location professional can share that pain.
2 weeks is an insanely long time. Like even just shutting a
Yeah,
road down for a few hours is a huge deal.
yeah, yeah.
So I applaud you for pulling that off for 2 weeks. I can only imagine the sort of hobnobbing and fruit baskets maybe that you had to deliver.
A lot of landman hats were given out to the
Good man,
local
that's
ranchers.
good. Yeah, swag. Swag is always handy. How about some of the like, oil rigs are sort of a character unto themselves in the
Yeah.
show. There's a big blowout of one in, our early episodes. So were you filming any real rigs? Were they, were you in a place where they were sort of constructed specifically for filming? Like how did that
Yeah.
play out?
So it's really cool. Actually, so when we first started Landman, no one knows it, right? And on a season one of a show, you always have to go in and you have to say, oh, this is the director that did X, Y, and Z. We have these stars attached, but nobody really knows what you're doing. And so reaching out to oil companies on season one, we were met with a lot of rejection. You know, there's a safety element. Also, these companies are making billions of dollars a week. and
Right. They
anything
don't
that I
care
can
about your
offer
movie money. It's like a drop in the bucket.
no, anything that I can offer them is going to be nothing. So they have to be interested. They have to be excited. So season one was a little challenging. Also, you know, up until Landman, if there's an oil company in a movie, they're probably the bad guy. You know, there's not. So these companies were not interested in working with us at first. And season two, it's been a complete turnaround. Now that season one's come out and Landman is championing the oil companies, major oil, big oil, explaining what they do. So it's been season two, we have companies knocking on our door and saying, would you like to shoot on our rig? Would you like to
How
shoot?
the tables have turned.
Yeah. So it's been great. But to answer your question, season one, we just bought rigs and then we found a really film-friendly ranch outside of Fort Worth. And we created pads that we could control and built roads and pads and things. And, you know, for these oil rigs or drilling rigs to actually drill and work, and then the pump jacks to actually pump and operate, we had to make holes and we had to drill down like hundreds of feet and pretty much do some real oil work so that it looked authentic and it was really cool. But you know, in Texas it's pretty easy. You talk to a rancher and they're like, yeah, you can put another hole out there, I don't care.
And then what's it like filming in Fort Worth? Because this is a city that's kind of had a big increase in filming in the past few years. So how receptive has the city and, you know, like residents, businesses, government officials been to all this increased activity?
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure a lot of you know too, the Texas tax incentive just passed this year, and so that's created a big boom in our area, and so Texas in general has just been increased in filming and production. Fort Worth specifically has been amazing to work with. The film commission and the city and the county has been just really supportive. You know, Fort Worth itself is a large city. The Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex is like one of the biggest places, you know, in the country. Um, but in Fort Worth, you can still get a hold of like the mayor, and you can still get a hold of people that can make decisions and help close roads and help you with things and find municipal buildings. And so it's kind of like working like when we worked in Montana, you know, you could just walk in and talk to the county judge, you know, with no appointment. And, you know, you can talk to these people. It's really easy to get a hold of them in Montana. And I was worried that it was going to be difficult in Texas at a big city, but it's not. They're approachable, they're helpful. Fort Worth is fantastic, you know.
You can also get a lot of different looks too, because it's, you know, the show is set in Midland. I've driven through Midland. It looks very, you know, and there are a lot of different things that you can get like in Fort Worth. So how far out do your location tendrils spread, at least in season one, as far as like how far outside of home base you're going?
So Taylor directed the first two episodes of Landman. And as a lot of you know, Taylor's a rancher and owns a lot of horses. And so he never wants to go far from his ranch and his horses. So we try to keep things close to his ranch. But, you know, like you're saying there, if you go south, you can get into some farmland. If you go west, you're getting these beautiful like plateaus and mesas and desert stuff. East, you get into Dallas, you can get some urban stuff. So we have a lot at our disposal within, you know, our line producers don't love this, but Taylor's like, if there's a place that I want to film, we can make it work in the schedule. We went to Oklahoma this season to go to film a casino. And so it's kind of, you know, we can go wherever we need to go. And then if it doesn't make sense for main unit, we send second unit out and we get the rest.
One really big scene that you also had in season one was this spring football game. Can you tell me about that? Because there's just so many moving parts, so many people. Was this a real football game? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. So he scripted the Permian Odessa High School spring game, and so we reached out to the school. The school was very excited because they are familiar with filming from Friday Night Lights being there and them being an actual, you know, character in the Friday Night Lights series. So they were very excited. They're film friendly. They're savvy. They understood what we were doing. So we worked with them, and of course, those of you know Billy Bob Thornton was the coach in the movie Friday Night Lights, and so he has a really close connection to the school and to the program. So when they found out that it was him and us, they welcomed us onto their campus, and then really, you know, it was a real game. And in Texas, we take football very seriously. So, you know, we were having to walk the fine line of being there and giving us as much control as possible without interrupting the football game that was going on, because there were like real scouts there for these kids that might affect their college and their professional careers. And so we, you know, we had to only shoot when we could and where we could. And, you know, they did work with us. We had the cheerleaders run out through like their sign 3 or 4 times to get it right. But it was really exciting. And then after the game, the coach came to me and was like, "Do you think Billy could talk to the team?" And Billy Bob's very, very cool guy, very down to earth, like remembers the crew's name, shakes hands, always smoking cigarettes all the time. He's a really cool guy. And he was like, I asked Billy, I was like, "Hey, would you want to talk to the team?" And he was like, "Shit, yeah, man, let's go." And so we crammed into the locker room after the game, and you have all these kids, and it smells awful like teenage boys, and we're in there, and Billy Bob just gives this like amazing Friday Night Lights-esque follow your dreams, work hard, you know, kind of speech to the team. And that was really fun moment for them and for us, you know, to be a fly on the wall and see like a real experience with him and how he affects those kids' lives. It was really cool.
Speaking of football, there's a special cameo from Jerry Jones, no big deal, billionaire owner of the Dallas Cowboys. Was there any special legwork that sort of went into having him on set, on location?
Definitely. And so it's funny. Taylor and him had met, and I think Taylor he invited him to a couple Cowboys games and invited some of the Yellowstone cast. So one day at Dallas Cowboys game, Taylor and him were talking, and the speech that Jerry does in Landman about how he woke up one day and realized it's not all about money, it's about your family, and it's about, you know, prioritizing what's important and not missing life trying to make money. He told that story to Taylor like in real life, and Taylor was like, "I would love to shoot you saying this in this."
Great. Adding this to the script.
Yeah, he was like, and that's a lot of Taylor stuff. It's all real life stuff that he experiences in life. And so then the next script, you know, also I'm sure some of you have to deal with this a lot. We get scripts like every other couple of weeks. We don't get them all at the front. So we're always kind of behind and chasing and going whatever. But also it's, you know, it's cool because he can adjust, and if something's working great at a location, he'll write for that location. But so he writes the scene in for Jerry Jones to be talking to Monty at the end and does the whole thing. And so of course, you know, working, you know, calling, you know, Jerry Jones's office and working with the Dallas Cowboys, that's really cool. And I get a phone call and it says, you know, like on your phone caller ID, maybe Dallas Cowboys. And I was like, oh, okay. And it's Jerry Jones' assistant. And she's like, "We're going to need to find a landing zone near, I think it was the hospital that we're filming at. Can you find us a landing zone, you know, at the hospital?" And I was like, "Well, the hospital has a helipad." And they're like, "Great, we're going to need access to that to get Jerry in." He had his own makeup people, his own hair people, not even for filming, just like I think his daily
General. Okay.
stuff. And so he shows up ready to go. And because it was a real story, he didn't like need to have lines or you know, do anything weird. And he showed up ready to go. We walked him in, and he did that scene. And you know, it's still kind of fun to be around people like that who are not really movie stars, but they're still like celebrities. And so everyone on the crew, a lot of local people were like, "Oh my God, this is like our guy." Yeah. So it was quiet. You know, Taylor was there that day. We were all just watching, and it was a powerful speech too. And so that was a really cool day and a really cool experience for the crew and the cast. And I think John Hamm even loved it too. He was like, "Man, that was cool."
It was a very memorable speech. It was a cool cameo. Last question for you. Do you have a favorite, like, what is your favorite location from season 1, whether it was like a beauty or a beast, and what is the story behind that?
Oh, geez. I don't know. Um, Can I say Rick's Cabaret? Those are always fun.
You can. That was a lot of fun. This is for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's a strip club that Ali Barber's character takes a bunch of old folks to on a field trip, and they have a grand old time.
Yeah, they couldn't believe that we wanted to shoot there, and they were really very, very kind, and they helped us with everything. They closed, and that was really fun. I would like to say one thing about Landman that I realized, and this is also fun for everyone here. So I don't know if everyone knows what a landman is, but it's a person that works for an oil company, and their whole job is they need to find a location to drill. So they do the research on what the best location would be. Once they find that, they go and knock on doors and they talk to the people, and then they get them to trust them very quickly. And then they talk to them about how they need to have access to their property, and they talk about the term and how much money they're going to get and how long they can do it. And then once they establish that, they manage the site or they're drilling.
This sounds really familiar.
Really familiar, right? And I'm like, wow, a landman is very, very much like a location person, except they make millions of dollars. And I was like,
Okay.
maybe
We're in the wrong business. Hang on, let's pivot.
Like maybe I made the wrong choice here.
Yeah.
No, but it's great. But it's
about
great.
my future. Preston, thank you so much for joining us on this call. Really good to hear all these stories. Looking forward to chatting with you at the award ceremony in a couple weeks. And with that, I'm going to pass this back over to James Parker, who's going to talk to our finalists from The Last of Us, season 2.
Hey, Nicole and Greg, thanks for joining us. You guys are calling in from British Columbia. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm in the Gulf Islands, Pender Island, but I reside in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Excellent. Looks beautiful there. Season 1 was in Alberta, correct?
Correct.
What led the charge to move it from Alberta to British Columbia?
There's a natural story progression that encouraged us into a more urban Pacific Northwest look. And so it made sense to move our production hub. I think Alberta serves excellent for the story pieces of season 1. But in season 2, our characters traverse up and over the mountain range and down to the coast, and then really embed themselves into this Seattle world.
You were all over the place, like Salt Lake City a little bit too. They went down there, correct? And yeah, Seattle,
yeah.
And Jackson Hole, Wyoming. That what you guys did with the town of Jackson Hole. Talk to me a little bit about that. That was a crazy episode. Episode 2. It was pretty big. A lot happened there.
Like many things in our show, that sort of world was built on multiple locations, but it was certainly a big piece of our early prep work. I think we spent 2 or 3 months traveling all over, looking for the right environment, the right trees, the right setting. And one of the elements of our show was definitely weather, especially through the first half of the season. We wanted snow, we wanted cold. We had to make some concerted decisions. Some of the places that we were entertaining were very remote, but would give us the ability to possibly have natural snow and or make snow. But once we sort of dug in a little bit further, we made a choice to come back towards Vancouver. So the place that we ended up is just outside of Vancouver on what we call our Sea to Sky Highway in Britannia, British Columbia. The big challenge, I think, for that particular set build was the acreage. The space that we created was vast. I think in the end it was about 8 city blocks. And so we needed control for a length of time in the right setting. And I think where we ended up was perfect.
Did you end up on private land or how?
Yeah, private land. Yeah. Yeah, so much of what we were going to be wanting to do needed some direct conversation. And not that we shied away from Crown Land, as we call it in Canada, but we knew that being able to have a direct avenue with the owner, walking through all the right permissions, was the best path forward for us.
And this is where you had an all-out battle, essentially, of hundreds and hundreds of zombies attacking this. You're lighting stuff on fire, and how does that conversation go?
Cannons.
We want to destroy everything.
We were very lucky. We were in very good hands. The owner of the property was somewhat familiar with film and was really easy to converse with. We had some amazing professionals who were able to sort of swiftly describe what it was we wanted to do, the ingredients that we were going to bring to the property, walk through safety and cleanup. Restoration was a big part of the conversation.
It always is. It always is.
Yes, it is.
Were you able to leave it up, or are you done with the set?
It's gone.
Gone. Took it all down.
Yeah, some of it's boxed up, waiting
Yeah.
in the wings, but no, that property's been cleared.
You guys do a lot. There's a lot of special effects in the show, obviously, crazy amount. What are those conversations you dealing with? What are your conversations with special effects? They're basically like, we're gonna come in and change everything, and then it's easier to convince any property or owner or anything. You're not going to make it look like it's been sitting there for 100 years, falling apart.
Well, that drove a lot of our early conversations, particularly with the snow for the first two episodes. How close of proximity is this to harvesting snow somewhere nearby? How much snowfall are we going to get ahead of time? What are the products that special effects is going to need? And a theme of the entire project was the length of control that we would need places. So there was constant conversation with our designer, Don McCauley, as far as what the art department would need. And then another layer of conversation with the special effects department for the snow and backing out from the shoot. And so, that became a piece of information that Kyle and Dave, who are with me today and did the location scouting for a lot of this, we needed to be armed with that information ahead of time. An example is our Route 191. So this is a section of highway. We wanted something that looked sincere. We wanted to be on a real live highway. It would benefit us if there was existing snow. But to bring in our elements, we were going to need to be able to track on that road for a couple of days in order to properly prepare it. So there was this very delicate and nuanced logistics, sort of a phasing. And we took charge of communicating within our show about how much time is everyone going to have? What do you need? Is this feasible? We can only close this highway. I think we ended up closing it for 4 days, 3 or 4 days. Is this going to work? And sort of hosting these production level conversations about whether this is feasible or not as we were scouting, which sometimes is hard because you don't necessarily know or people haven't been there. So it's hard to arm us with the right information, but we got there in the end.
It's awesome. So you were in the snow quite a bit, obviously. How much of it were you looking forward to do in the actual snow, or it was make it everywhere we go?
At the outset, we were very hopeful we would gain as much real snow as possible and that we would be in a cold enough environment. I think we had about 5 months of soft prep at the outset of production before all the departments came on. And we were very focused on finding things close to our production hub. There's a lot that's lost when you're having to go distant. So the idea was to keep it as close to Vancouver, which is where our production hub was. But we were all aware that it was an El Nino year and the implications behind that. As we got into December and started to track the snowfall, the temperatures, comparing them to the past years and historical records, it became quite clear that we weren't going to have not only real snow or pack, things were melting, the ground was really warm, that we were also going to be limited in our ability to create snow. You need sort of a perfect storm in order to do that. So just as we hit our Christmas hiatus, everyone was planning to go away, take a break, come back, and then hit hard prep. A big decision was made by everybody that we needed to find deeper cold in order to do this. And we then pivoted and mounted a whole scout team over the hiatus, completely re-envisioned, I'm going to say 3 or 4 big elements for our first 2 blocks, and ended up back in Alberta in the Kananaskis region. And what that gave us was just a really heavy pack of snow, so we could harvest, bring it in, blow it around. It was really cold, so that snow that we laid in would stay and remain. It was a tough pivot, but I think in the end, the aesthetics that we got from that were fantastic. But one of the pieces in all of that dialogue is mixing real snow with fake snow. How does that work if we need to bring in elements that are sort of foreground or for on cast? Can we be in a park setting? Can we be in a place where that can get cleaned up afterwards? But that was a really tricky piece of the scouting, was being able to know the sections of the story that wanted to have fake snow, special effects products. Were we comfortable with that? Were we comfortable with the cleanup of that? And where we weren't able to use that, for instance, the highway, were we going to be successful with real snow being blown around? Do we have the timeline for that?
We're not too familiar with snow down in Los Angeles, so it is interesting to hear about all the extra things you have to do to deal with it all.
Yes, and an interesting element to The Last of Us, which is true of all the locations, they're untouched. Footprints become a big problem. Tracks in the snow become a big problem. So we're always looking for that pristine. And so after we'd secured everything, a big mandate for the locations team was protecting the snow, working with special effects. So making sure we knew everybody was off that section of the set by 4 o'clock. So we still had light until 6 p.m. to lay in a fresh blanket so that it looked pristine. And then as fall came around, ensuring nobody was getting in there with any tracks for whatever piece of the, first half of the day that we wanted to shoot in that pristine blanket.
How was you, like, you're out there in the woods, there's animals running around. How was that an issue? Like, trying to get
it wasn't. I'm thankful. I hadn't considered that.
No
yeah,
grizzly bears.
There was quick fixes, obviously, to camera. We had a lot of quick fixes. But yeah, you're right. Well, and in certain sections we were on ski hills, and there was private ski excursions that had already been booked, and we needed to work in tandem with them because as they came down the mountain in our background, they laid a beautiful little track of their skis behind them, and that was a conversation with visual effects because there was only so much finances could do to control that in this vast background, and so VisFX helped us.
That's good. There's no recreational skiing in the apocalypse, I don't think.
No.
The lake, that lake where Joel takes, I don't want to ruin anything for anybody, but you know what lake I'm talking about. That was beautiful. Where was that based?
That location was on Seymour Mountain, which is just outside of Vancouver on our local coastal mountain range. It was beautiful. Mystery Lake is what it's called. That ended up being quite a feat, not only to scout. I think Dave and Kyle can both attest to our joints and how we felt at the end of that scouting period. But then also the logistics of it. It was really remote. There was a number of pieces of equipment we knew we needed to get in. Not only that, just access for the crew. And because of its sort of majestic nature and the fact that it looked so pristine, we elected to build a road up to it and a couple of landing pads for our like tiny bit of equipment that we ended up getting to the top. In the end, it was quite successful, but it was a real dance.
Wow, it was worth it. I mean, is that the lake? Did special effects help you out with it? I mean, that was beautiful.
Special effects helped. They're funny. The season we were in was spring. There was a lot of snowpack. We watched the snow melt every day. Someone hiked up and reported in on the degree of snow remaining. We helped it along a little bit with the help of Seymour Mountain staff. because we didn't need snow at that point. So we chased snow all through prep, and we chased snow the first 2 episodes, and then this dichotomy of watching the snow melt, hoping for it to melt, checking the temperature every morning. So certainly we had some help from our marine staff, the special effects department, the greens department, to get that to more of like a green, luscious feel.
It's a real team effort out there.
It was.
The Seattle Aquarium, that was an interesting location to me. What process went into that, to finding that, and where did you end up?
We ended up at the Vancouver Aquarium. It was fairly straightforward. There were several elements that we built on stage, and the pieces that came into our finale episode were the bowels of the aquarium. So this was where all of their air supply for the water, as well as the seawater, comes and goes from. And it had all this cavernous pipe pumps, really interesting texture and patina, because it was the bowels. They didn't, maintain a pristine look to it, and it fit the bill for what we were after aesthetically. The challenge in it was the dialogue. That whole subterranean level is incredibly loud, and is life support. And so to make that feasible, we worked very concertedly with the team, the life support team at the Vancouver Aquarium, to find ways of creating temporary systems, working just to the edge of where we were going to turn off pumps so that things were at 100% level, and then a whole monitoring of our oxygen levels in all the tanks, in order to be able to create these sections of silence in this otherwise very noisy environment.
Sound appreciates that, I'm sure.
We had several sound tests. They were very involved, holding our hands the whole way. I can't count the number of times we went early before the aquarium opened to run tests and record and send samples to post, in order to make sure that everyone felt confident the footage was going to work, because it was a costly endeavor.
I bet. Greg and Kyle are on the Zoom as well.
Yes, and Dave, our location.
We'd love to hear from you guys. What was your most challenging or biggest accomplishment for the show? We want to hear from you.
I mean, I can start it. Kyle, I'm one of the location scouts. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I've never worked on a show that was less linear with reading a script. We need a hotel, we need a house, we need a, you've been doing this for a long time, everybody has, and you've got sort of this bucket of stuff that you go and look at. And everything on this was this very conceptual: what is visual effects? What is foreground? What are we building? And there is no solid answer, because nobody really knows until you start getting down the road. And so it was a lot of connective tissue. It was a lot of Nicole having the vision of, like, I know that the ship has to move forward. And so, we had to be really creative with making those decisions and also being tasked with, we want to see real world examples of everything. No matter how insane. We've got this crumbling building. Well, do you guys have any of those? And the answer can never be no. It's, we will keep scouting until you decide to build it. So it's a relentless task of providing viable creative locations that then Nicole and the office have to decide, is this even shootable? Because as Nicole said, there's no like, let's go in and bang this off in a day. The art department's going, we need 5 days of prep and 5 days of wrap, and then we need 3 days to shoot it. And so it was the most challenging job I've ever done, in the sense that just trying to wrap your head around what is this is a daily task. And I think we got better and better at it as the show progressed, but it never let up. And reshoots and changing of scripts and changing of ideas and weather. And, it was, I've never done anything that came close to challenging my ability to stay creative, stay focused, and not feel overwhelmed for, I mean, I was on it for like 18 straight months, and there wasn't a slow day, not one. So that was, I couldn't even point to one thing because there was 3 a week that were like, how are we going to do this? Like it all came together. And like I said, I think we really just started building systems that let us manage it in smaller chunks, and starting to really get a rhythm of what's a build, how do we manage our time? That was the hardest thing. We could have had 100 scouts on the show and they would have been busy every day.
Wow. But you did a great job. The show looks great. It's a hit show. Yeah. It's good you're staying busy too. Greg, do you want to weigh in?
Sure. It's as one of the location managers, as we progressed on, it was, early on, it was very, very clear that this was very high profile project. It was the intensity and the expectations were very, very large, not just from HBO, but from Craig Mazin, and Neil Druckmann, the writer, Craig being the writer and the creator producers, of what their expectations were for season two. So once we understood and what to expect, now now to implement all of this preparation and work into everything, it's not the traditional contemporary filming where you're down on a city street and you're there and you cover some signage and you deal with clearances and you kind of lock up the traffic. This was multiple days of closure to allow the Greens and Art Department to come in for 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks potentially of where we were, whether it was a neighborhood where Joel's house was, or whether it was in the downtown Vancouver. What it took to get to that level, and with sometimes very tight time frames for that type of logistical closures. So we really leaned heavily on the art department and the Greens department, who, really truthfully beat the crap out of the Greens department on this. They were spectacular, but they worked really hard, and sometimes, kind of very, very tight time frames that we were forcing them into, not just for prep, but also wrap to get out, and nothing was untouched. You go into like I said, 1, 2, 3 blocks. The expectation is we're touching every building, everything at least 20 to 30 feet high, and then visual effects will likely take over, but we expect everything to be touched building wise in some form or another, whether it's vines, aging, whatever we needed to do, and the streets and covered in dirt and greens and moss and abandoned cars and everything. That's pretty much everywhere we went, did that to a level. And some streets were easier and slightly sort of maybe more industrial areas, but there was some in downtown Vancouver. There was some very, very major street corridors that took a lot of coordination for multiple folks on our team to work with transit, work with the city, work with the BIAs to close down some pretty major arterial routes in the city, for sure, as we went. And but we had the ability to have the team and the manpower to be there, sometimes weeks, months in advance, getting the legwork done and being able to speak with everybody and have deals and have the time to do that. There were, of course, as Nicole knows, there was a couple occasions where we're prepping to be there on a particular day, and within a week prior, we're told, oh, hey, we really need to do this the day before. And so, you time your logistics and you time everything to shoot on this particular day, and now it's pulled 1 to 2 days before. And that is quite the effort to get that pulled backwards in some occasions. But the city, the folks, the police, the city officials, business owners, we had the time and, like I said, to work with everyone who was very supportive of the project, which was somewhat secret in our code name as we went. So especially much earlier on, we couldn't say who we were, much as you want to get that cachet and get that sort of name out there, but we couldn't. So like with other projects that you don't know what it is, there's not a lot of recognition for it. As time went out, word got out. We still didn't advertise who we were, but word got out who we were. So it became, as in conversation, there was sort of this wink of acknowledgement that we know who you are, and what made it, you know, much more, you know, possible, and everybody was super receptive.
Incredible. You certainly deserve this nomination. That sounds like y'all worked very hard to get everything done and do it again and change it, and oh, it's incredible.
I would say, just not to interrupt, I know you got a lot of time, but I would say the biggest challenge probably for us, I think, in my world, was probably working in Stanley Park, in downtown Vancouver. In the height of summer, it's one of the crown jewels of Vancouver. It's an urban park. It's 1,000 acres. Comparatively to New York Central Park, which is 850 acres. So this is 1,000 acres in essentially downtown Vancouver, full of fir trees and all sorts of other amenities in there. And we were in there in a particular section in the height of summer with a crew of 300, not once, not twice, I think 3 times we ended up going back there, you know, with limited parking. So it was thread the needle with parking logistics purely, and then working within the park. Parks Board are fantastic, but working with torches at night with, you know, the characters and the people running with torches in a park at the height of fire season, in Vancouver was definitely probably one of the biggest challenges and the most tense for something to go sideways. But special effects were great. We had plans, we had fire safety, we had all sorts of things in place, but still, nonetheless, I don't want to be that guy that something happens to that park. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much. This concludes our time for the interview.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Massive thanks, congratulations, and good luck to all of our finalists.